evening. Good to have you with us in this edition of the Urban Debate. For the second time this week, we're going to put the spotlight on prime time on the border dispute between Assam and Mizoram, which is still raging on. The ugly violence and the clashes that unfolded a few days ago have left a massive impact on that entire region. And the dispute, in fact, is only intensifying. Remember, 7 Assam policemen were killed in the clashes that took place on July 26th. Now, in the latest, let me first tell you what's been happening. Mizoram has alleged that Assam has disrupted the road and rail link connecting the two states, thus affecting the free movement of goods and services. Mizoram, in fact, has raised concerns with the centre, alleging that Assam has damaged the lone rail link and stopped movement along the Silchar-Aizawl National Highway. Not just that, the dispute has also impacted everyday life of people in the two states. While the death toll rose, there were many organizations that came out to observe protests and bandhs even in the state of Assam. Civilian movement for people of Mizoram across the border has also been impacted. Normal life crippled in many of these border areas. On Wednesday, there was a 12-hour bandh in Assam's Barak Valley as well. Businesses were shut in Chachar and 2 district roads leading to Mizoram were blocked by various groups. Now, while the government of Assam and the police says we haven't done anything, fact of the matter is that movement across the two borders has been hit, which has a larger impact than on Mizoram's side, which is what they are claiming. But even from the Mizoram's end, there has been provocation. While the Assam Chief Minister has stopped making comments that would be provocative, the police in Assam has been extremely active. This after Mizoram Member of Parliament in Rajya Sabha, K. Vanlal Vena, made a controversial comment. And he said, "We shot them dead because they shot us first." But he didn't stop here. He actually went on to then say that they are lucky we didn't kill them all. And if they come again, we shall kill them all. Effectively, what you are seeing is this kind of commentary that is only going to further add fuel to this fire. And once this comment came out, the Assam police created a team that packed up its bags and headed to the national capital to question the Mizo MP, saying his comments are indicative of a conspiracy, and that is the conspiracy that we are going to investigate. So it doesn't look like at this point of time that either from Assam or from Mizoram's end, there is any attempt to calm the tempers down, that there is any attempt to pull back. It doesn't look like even after the temporary pact, the interim agreement that was made on Wednesday after a meeting with central government officials, that things are settling down on ground. It is really shocking, like I said 2 days ago. That something of this magnitude, of this intensity can take place inside our country between two states. This isn't a conflict with another country over a border. This is a conflict that 2 northeastern states are involved in, that has turned bloody, that has disrupted life, and even now it is becoming a large territorial, even ethnic groups issue. What is going on? Let's try and understand the background and ask this one big question. Is it time for the centre to intervene and resolve this dispute once and for all? And I say this because it's not just about Assam versus Mizoram, Assam versus Nagaland, Assam versus Meghalaya, Assam versus Arunachal. There are multiple disputes that are going on. For the BJP government that came to power in 2014 with the big plan of a northeast policy, this doesn't seem to be working out. Is that policy failing on ground? Is Assam trying to be a regional bully? Fine, a lot of these states work out of Assam at one point of time. But now, is it acting like a regional bully, blocking access to the rest of the states? And if NDA allies, which are in power in centre, in Assam, in Mizoram, cannot really resolve these disputes, then should the Supreme Court have to intervene? Should the parties and the individual state governments simply go to the Supreme Court and seek a resolution? How can it be that in 2021, after decades of independence, we are still fighting with each other over boundaries and territories? Let's say good evening to the panelists who are joining us on this conversation. Patricia Mukim, editor for Shillong Times; Lieutenant General Shokin Chauhan, former chairman of the CFMG Nagaland; Karma Paljor, editor-in-chief for East Mojo; Dr. Rajdeep Roy, MP for Lok Sabha from Silchar; Bhaskar Jyoti Gogoi, political analyst, also joining me this evening. I want to start off with Patricia on this. Patricia, help our viewers also understand, since the violent clash, how has the situation now intensified with both sides making, bolder claims and even in action showing a lot of provocation?
See, the problem today is also that you have social media, and the Chief Minister of Assam is hyperactive on his Twitter handle. He said that he would set up a force of 4,000 commandos to guard the borders. Now, this is, it's a sign of intimidation. I think both the chief ministers should first calm down, and then only will the public be able to calm down. And then, one must also look at the fact that on the same day, border disputes broke out at two places. Just because that dispute was not violent in Meghalaya side, we cannot just remember that we cannot only keep talking about Mizoram. The same day, the Assam police entered into Meghalaya territory and uprooted an electric pole there and stopped the corporation men, the energy corporation men from putting that pole there for the villagers. It's unfortunate that it had to lead to this kind of killing. But, if you talk about the Supreme Court, there are states that have gone to the Supreme Court. Arunachal's case is still in the Supreme Court since 1987. And there are some cases where, for instance, the Assam-Nagaland border, Assam-Meghalaya border clash, there was a commission that was set up, headed by a retired Supreme Court judge, the Chandrachud Committee. They had given a few, solutions for give and take, but that was not accepted. So you may go to court, but then it depends on whether the states accept that or not, because we are not looking at constitutional boundaries. Most of these states inhabited by the tribes are looking at their ethnic boundaries, at their cultural boundaries, at their traditional boundaries as handed them over to them by their traditional chieftains. So to expect just a political solution of this problem is asking for too much. I think one needs to be a little more imaginative and creative and make these borders hubs of economic progress of some kind.
Okay, so you're saying that, if we continue to focus on creating economic hubs, maybe that will be a solution. You're right. There were two different commissions that were set up who submitted their reports to the top court, and that didn't go anywhere. I want to pick up on that point because it's extremely important to understand the nuances here. Karma, would you like to come in here as well to what, Patricia is saying, that it's not just about political boundaries or constitutional boundaries. There are various ethnic tribes which are involved. And so we have to look at a solution which considers or factors in their view and their history as well.
Absolutely. What Patricia ma'am said about the tribes. The problem is that the entire country paints the Northeast with a single brush. You do not know the intricacies that are there. There are so many tribes, different castes, different regions. So that has to be taken into consideration. A lot of people yesterday were saying that, wow, Supreme Court may be, going to court maybe will solve problems. It will not. It will fester. It will go on for a long time because the status quo has been there forever, ever since the state was created. So the people living there in the borders have not been spoken to. And I say this again and again that people are not being spoken to. So all you get is tension, all you get are issues. Now, as far as this particular issue is concerned, it has been festering for some time. In fact, 2018, 2019 too, there were clashes at a separate point where some journalists were also manhandled. That became a big issue here, but it was forgotten again. Since October, we've been seeing this problem. We've been reporting, the regional press has been reporting very closely on the movement of policemen, because Assam also on its part has been complaining, has been saying that there's been encroachment on their lands. The forest department, remember, large tracts of forest are there, very fertile soil. They go betel nut, which is a cash crop in these regions. Assam has also been complaining. Mizoram on their side has been making a lot of noise. Going to Human Rights Commission, they were complaining to the NHRC, saying that, the villagers have been attacked, harassed. So from both sides, issues have been on. It's not like suddenly violence erupted and there was firing from one side. It has gone on for some time, but sadly, the center has totally not taken cognizance. And despite the Home Minister, who many consider to be one of the most powerful Home Ministers in this country, Amit Shah, him coming down to Shillong, sitting all our 8 chief ministers down and saying, boys, let's talk about peace. I mean, that didn't work out, sadly.
So let me ask you this before I take it to our other representatives. Since you said, and there have been multiple instances, and maybe not just with just Assam and one state along many of its borders, who is triggering this? Who is provoking all of these skirmishes? And is there an easy one single answer to that problem?
I wish there was.
I think you need to have a probe here. You seriously need a probe.
Okay, you know what? Let me just also bring in Lieutenant General Shokin Chauhan on this. General Chauhan, would you agree with what Patricia and Karma are both saying, that there is no simple answer to who's to be blamed, to who's triggering that? Is there a simple answer to who can fix the problem then?
Absolutely. I agree with Patricia and I agree with Karma. They both talked a lot of sense about the boundary issue. It's entirely an issue of not understanding the tribal boundaries. It's absolutely that. It's also an issue about the ongoing tussle is also because of the various cash crops that are grown there and the likely materials or likely natural resources that are in that place. Now, you mentioned this earlier, but you mentioned it in passing, is that these states were carved out of Assam. That's an important issue, because when they were carved out of Assam, the boundary demarcation didn't take place properly. It was done in a hurry. Probably they felt that they needed to create these political boundaries. But Patricia, one issue that I feel is important to mention is everything is political. So there has to be a political solution, because everything has been made political. Whether heads have to be banged together or whatever the issue is. As you all have said, there have been 2 boundary commissions. It's gone to the Supreme Court. But in the end of the story, people have to agree. So what I feel personally, the way out is, you've got to get the people to agree. You've got to make them sit down and carve this boundary out and have peace. And yes, Patricia, I agree with you. Create, the boundaries as islands of prosperity. They should not be made political. And certainly, this is not acceptable in 2021. This kind of violence is not acceptable. But please don't blame only Assam, for this issue. It's not an issue of Assam. It's the issue that everything was carved out of Assam. So one has to understand that until we're fair about everything, we won't get forward. So there are minor triggers. I've been the Director General of the Assam Rifles. There are triggers which I found, and also because the ongoing insurgency, there's certainly just too many weapons there. They've all got to be removed. So all in all, it comes to an issue is solve the insurgency, get people to sit down together, clear this boundary dispute. And yes, Supreme Court must come in, must say that this is not acceptable, and have a commission that gets the chief ministers to agree. They have to agree, and political or non-political, whatever be the future of this, everything has to come to a point at which the people on the ground agree. Thank you, Tanvi.
Okay, so if we say that the people on the ground and their views also need to be brought in, Dr. Rajdeep Roy, then who's going to do this? Wouldn't this have been the best time between the same party and the same alliances, governments in so many of the states in Northeast and at the center? The fact that the Home Minister was there 2 days before this violence broke out and still this is happening does raise big question marks on whether or not there is any interest in resolving these issues.
No, I agree that there has to be interest in
General John, if I
issue.
can just take that question to Dr. Rajdeep Roy. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, come again.
Dr. Roy, who's going to resolve it? With the BJP in power in center, its ally in Mizoram, and in Assam, BJP in power in Assam, this would have been a great opportunity for us to be sitting across the table and talking rather than fighting across the border.
Tanvi, I would put certain things in the perspective before I come directly to answer your question. Let us understand that one entity. People are talking of 1873 map, which will resolve the border issue, which was drawn when there was no existence of the term Mizoram. Only Lushai Hills was in existence. Now, post-partition 1947, we have a country which has been formed, and then that subsequently the state of Assam has been, divided into 4 subdivisions. 4 states were created. Mizoram got created in early 70s. Now, someone trying to equate Lushai Hills to Mizoram, there is a fundamental difference. You cannot have the map of 1873 applicable in 2021. That is my basic contention. Now, coming to your question directly. Now, you have had a series of government for the last 70 years who have basically not solved the issue of borders, not just Assam-Mizoram, but there are other borders in question, as I have told earlier. Now, the question is, this government has come to power, it is not even 70 months. And the Home Minister has been in power for hardly 2 years. And from the beginning of his term, when he took over as the Home Minister, Mr. Amit Shah ji has been very categorical that he has spoken to all the Chief Minister in very clear-cut terms that we want an end to the border dispute, not just Assam-Mizoram, but all border disputes of Northeast should end by 2024. We have fixed a target and we are moving towards the target. And to this effect, we were absolutely not sure that a sister organization who are basically being ruled by the same constitution and same blue book, that all of a sudden you will turn your LMGs towards your sister forces and start firing. As I am seeing, you are showing those clips when the 2 DCs and the 2 SPs were in talks at border area so that they can retrieve from their position. All of a sudden, from a hilltop, I would not blame the entire Mizo police, to be honest with you, but there were some black sheeps in the Mizoram police. Probably they got too provoked and started opening up their LMGs and started firing. The question is very pertinent. Who will solve this issue? Look, border issues is not a state subject, and neither it falls within the complete purview of the center. It is a concurrent subject. The center has to step in. There has to be, approval of the 2 states also. So it is a concurrent subject. It is not a state subject per se, or neither it is a central government subject on the whole. So you have to have, because we have a federal structure, both Mizoram and Assam will have the say. And to this effect, our Honorable Chief Minister, Dr. Himanta Biswa, has been very categorical in saying that if the center says that we will give off some part of the land, we will very well do it. But there has to be a consensus. One slight point I will make before I end my opening remark is that last meeting, not this yesterday's meeting, few months back, there was a meeting under the chairmanship of Joint Secretary Home in MHA, where both the DGPs and the chief secretaries were called to Delhi. After the meeting, a resolution was taken, and in that resolution, the Assam side of the officers, the CS and the DGP signed the papers, but the CS and the DGP of Mizoram left Delhi without signing those papers. I am stunned. How can a DGP and a chief secretary of a state come back from Delhi without signing the papers? So that is one pertinent question which needs to be answered. And I'm sure last point, absolute last point in 10 seconds is that yesterday when a decision was taken, I was at the border about 5 hours back. I was at the border at Lailapur today with all the ministers and even the Assam side of the police and all. And I have seen with my own eyes that the Assam police has vacated the dispute and handed over the area to the CRPF Jawans. But the Mizo police has not vacated. As of now, as I am talking to you, the Mizo police is yet to vacate the disputed site along 306 National Highway of around 164 kilometers on that area, which forms the border of Assam and Mizoram. This is my opening remark.
Okay. But just one follow-up question, Dr. Roy. Tell me, do you really believe that agreements discussed between the Home Secretary and the Chief Secretary of the two states and their DGPs is what is going to bring about any kind of change and solution on ground? I mean, ideally, it has to be the entire Northeast Democratic Alliance along with the central government, the Home Minister, even the PMO involved. With the Chief Ministers not even there, with what authority is the Chief Secretary going to be taking any onus for this?
No, look, you have to understand, any dispute like this cannot be solved by a one-off meeting between one-on meeting with the two Chief Minister and the Home Minister. It has to be a several level, it has to be a several steps undergoing into maybe when the DGPs and the Chief Secretaries agree to certain set of rules, then only your Chief Ministers and the Home Minister will come in. And as a rule, because we are talking of the Assam-Mizoram border, I presume that we have to handle the Assam-Mizoram border because it is an urgent situation. We don't want any further blockades or anything to take place and all. There are 11 lakh population of Indians who are there living in Mizoram. We are worried about them, and we actually want that this flashpoint needs to be, put under the carpet, and then we will talk definitely of the other border issues that are existing. There is one between Nagaland and Manipur. There is one very this thing going on for a long time in the Supreme Court between Assam and Nagaland. In fact, there are all the small 4 states which have been created out of Assam has border issues with Assam. I'm not putting any blame on anyone, but all these border issues needs to be solved once and for all.
Correct. And which is why Bhaskar Jyoti Gogoi, shouldn't it be Assam that takes the lead here, whether it's in conversations, at the center or in the Supreme Court, whatever be the solution, at the end of the day, it is Assam which has multiple disputes over territories with multiple states.
Definitely, absolutely. And that's the reason why our CM, Dr. Himanta Biswa Sarma, has categorically stated that the regions where Assam has a conflict with other states are all forest land, and Assam is committed towards protection of the forest land, whatever be it. And Assam is going to file a case in Supreme Court regarding this matter. But what pains me is that such a heinous crime has happened on the basis of a legacy conflict, and I see there is more to it. After the carve down on the drug cartel has started in Assam, there has been a serious loss of money to these drug cartels that are operating in Mizoram. And maybe there are some elements in the Mizo political class who probably wants to intimidate Assam or target Assam CM particularly, as we have seen in the Twitter hashtags criticizing Assam CM a lot. Because after the incident, Assam has lost their policemen, and in the Twitter and on social media, Assam CM has been attacked, who has nothing to do with it. He has been here for around 60 days maybe, and he has been attacked. So maybe I feel that because he has taken a strict action against the drug cartel and drug mafia, so maybe that element has to be seen and looked into. And I have seen reports also that in various news media that maybe drug issue is a major reason why such a thing has happened, because legacy conflicts has been going on for 50 years, maybe 50, 60 years, but it has never amounted to killing of policemen by policemen. So that's a matter of concern, and we should look into it more rather than looking into the legacy conflicts, which
I understand what you're saying, but frankly, I think from top to bottom, everybody seems to be giving social media way too much importance. I mean, yes, You're right, the Assam Chief Minister may have been targeted, attacked, trolled on social media, but I don't think either him or the Mizoram Chief Minister should have also taken to social media and lashed out at each other the way they did. The proper way
So
of
what should the
resolving
Assam
this
CM
issue
do
would have been
at
to
the
talk
at
on
the
the
time-
phone
at the time-
and to speak directly to the Home Minister.
Tanvi
Why
ji-
did they have to start
Tanvi-
tagging the Home Minister and the PMO via
Tanvi ji,
Twitter?
Tanvi ji, when Assam CM's own personnel are getting killed, he's not resorting to firing. He is attacking in the social media. What's the harm in it? What's the harm in it?
Okay,
He has not,
Patricia wanted to come in
accomplished to
earlier.
kill,
Yes, go ahead,
Yeah,
please.
yeah, let me come in here.
Yeah.
See,
He
there
has
is a
to
lot
he
of
has to defend
assumption. Excuse me. There's a lot of assumption that might be due to curbs on the drug cartel and so on and so forth, which is why I'm saying that a probe is really necessary at this point. And then, this is not a fight between two police forces. This is a fight, a territorial fight. And it's not an international border. This is an internal border. So to expect the police to resolve this conflict is, I think, very unimaginative, if you ask me. Also, we have to remember that the chief secretary, DGP level meetings between Assam and Meghalaya, between Nagaland and Assam, Arunachal and Assam, have happened countless times, and they've not been able to resolve this conflict. So it means that these officials meet, but the people don't agree with what they come back. And perhaps the reason why the DGP and the CS of Mizoram came back is because they know they don't have the backing of the people. If the chief minister goes, if there's a chief ministerial level talk, and if those talks are chaired by the home minister of the country, perhaps it makes more sense.
It is Mr. Joram Thanga who refused to go to Delhi to talk. Assam CM has been calling Mr. Joram Thanga 6 to 7 times on the day of the incident, and many a times he cut the call. So there has been a lot of antagonism from the Mizoram CM side, and that has to be noted. And today also, yesterday we have seen how a Mizoram MP said that he will kill all the Assam police personnel will be killed if they try to do again. So this kind of posture from Mizoram's political class has to be condemned, rather than condemning Dr. Himanta Biswa Sarma, who has defended Assam police.
I think we shouldn't take sides here.
Yeah.
We should all be objective.
Correct. I think so. I would agree completely with Patricia. I don't think we can take sides here, because that's exactly the problem. And, the more divided we get, the more difficult it is going to be getting to a solution point. But, Karma, like you also pointed out, there are many layers to this. There are many different tribes, different communities which are also going to be involved. If we begin to also take everybody into account, add to that the politics of it, add to that, various other vested interests that function in that zone, how are we ever going to come to an agreement that works for everybody?
And that's exactly how you can come into a solution here in the Northeast. All of us here who are from the Northeast, who have our roots in the Northeast, understand how important identity is for all of us, So therefore, the people have to be spoken to. Without talking to the people, even the Chief Minister of a state does not carry any mandate to the center. The people will simply not listen to him. And that has been experienced by so many chief ministers, not just a chief minister from a big state like Assam. Here, I just wanted to point out that we missed leadership this time around from both sides. And I'm not being partisan when I say from the side of Mizoram, the chief minister, the Rajya Sabha MP making such a horrid statement, it is not acceptable. We wanted a statesman-like reaction from them. Also, the responsibility of the chief minister of Assam. He is one chief minister who's looked up to not just by the people of Assam, by people across the Northeast, as a problem solver, as somebody who is able to talk to all the chief ministers. I mean, he's the convener of NEDA. Correct. And every time he proudly brought all the chief ministers together, spoken to them, and he's the one who's there everywhere. He reaches to all the states, and he's so energetic. I mean, we expected him to be one more proactive. And when I say that the war on Twitter sharing of videos on Twitter. It is a very sad incident, should not have happened. We all condemn it, but little unstatesmanlike is what we saw our leaders becoming. In fact, Dr. Rajdeep Roy is here. He's been one of the saner voices, calling the brothers and sisters of Mizoram and Assam to calm down. And we need more of that.
Dr. Roy, do you believe that at this point, even if it is Assam that, like you pointed out, is taking the first few steps, but as the bigger state, you need to lead the way, you need to withdraw, you need to send more calming messages, outreach message for at least a balanced conversation to begin?
Look, Tanvi, I absolutely agree with Mr. Karma Paljor, who has said a very valid point in the end part of his deliberation, that we sometimes look up to Dr. Himanta Biswa Sharma, not just as a leader from Assam, but for entire Northeast. He has stitched a coalition which is running very well for the last 6 years in the entire Northeast. Now, my question to your, my answer to your question is very categorical. There are Mizo families, Mar families, who are residing at the disputed site. I have had a lot of talks with my leaders, including the Chief Minister, Dr. Himanta Biswa Sharma. If the center says that hand over those Mizo villages to Mizoram, we will jolly good do it. But it has to be in a structured manner. I don't see that a Mizo village, the people of Mizoram speaking the Mizo language and voting for the elections in Assam for the last 70 years. If they wishes to go back to Mizoram, I have absolutely no objection and my government will have no objection. But sending LMG armed police personnel to fire at the Assam police personnel and then capture those land, put fire to the cultivation is not the way forward. Look, I have been hearing talks from your end regarding the fight that is going on in the social media. My very important suggestion is, look, when my brothers and sisters of Northeast who are of Mongoloid origin, if they go to Delhi, Bombay, Calcutta, and if they are called Chinkis, my soul hurts, it pricks me. I don't want anyone to be called Chinkis. And in the same tune, if any Bengali-speaking people of Assam are called Bangladeshis by the so-called states in like Mizoram or Meghalaya, then also I have an objection. I have objection at Chinkis being called out in the entire country and Bengali-speaking people being called out as Bangladeshis. I am not a Bangladeshi. My origins may be. And for that matter, if you go into a deeper debate, there are more Bangladeshis today who are having a valid Indian citizenship in West Bengal than in the entire Northeast put together. But Bengalis from West Bengal are not dubbed as Bangladeshis. So there has to be some sort of an understanding between these 7 states, or rather 8 states. Our Prime Minister calls it the Astalakshmi. I think we have to be more pragmatic, and I agree with most of the panelists today. All of them are very, very educated, learned, and have a vision for Northeast. I presume that all of us can come together on a single platform. If we try, I think we can solve this problem. It is not an unsurmountable problem. The Berlin Wall has come down. The border dispute between all the northeastern states can be solved.
Okay, so okay, fair enough. General Chauhan, then the next question is this. One would think that we were already making some progress, even if it is very slow and gradual progress, since the current government came into power. The creation of a NEDA, for example, the focus of this government to bring about more development projects, to improve the rail connectivity, road connectivity, etc., would help. What is then going wrong? Are we again seeing a rise in insurgency? You spoke about more weapons being out there on the streets that need to be dealt with. Is there some kind of a setback that we are looking at here?
Tanvi, see, we should be very clear about 2-3 issues here. One is the Northeast has always had weapons, illegal weapons. There has been an ongoing insurgency, though we are at ceasefire, but there are a number of groups that have their own agenda, whether political or economic or terrorist or whatever be the process or drug related. But the issue is that these weapons are there and they cause people to be more, they create a lot of problems within the borders. I agree with the MP of Silchar. Absolutely. He seems to be an excellent leader, and his way of looking at things, I totally agree. The Mizo villages that are on the border of Assam and Mizoram must be given the choice of going of redrawing this boundary and giving it to Mizoram if that's what they want. So also the Hamas. Similarly, the issues with regard to sharing of the ground, the various natural resources that are there, that too needs to be sorted out. We need, I agree with Karma, we need, a statesman now. But let me just give you some ground issues that we could do immediately. One is the government has done it very quickly. We've got the CRPF in. You must have an independent force, independent of both the state forces there. Secondly, you must take away the weapons from the border area. Take it away from the border police also. They simply don't need these weapons. Thirdly, institute a commission with the chairman who is well respected from all over, so that he can be available and acceptable to all the chief ministers of the Northeast, and he takes the action based on the people knowing that he is neutral and sensible and has an idea of the pulse of the Northeast. The next issue is actually go to ground, actually go and ask the people what they want to do and how we can change this particular thing. The Supreme Court can't act till we have a viable plan ahead of us. We can't divide borders anymore till we are absolutely clear how this division of the border should take place. So all in all, Tanvi, it's a large issue. It needs to be, it needs to be solved now. We can't now push it under the carpet, and we can't keep hoping that the next generation will be more sensible. We have to do it. And yes, since I've been the chairman of the ceasefire monitoring group, I agree entirely. This is the time to sort out all insurgencies in this area. There's simply too many weapons and illegal weapons that need to be taken out from the people there. Thank you.
Okay.
Tanvi, can I come
yes,
in,
please. I was coming to you next. Yeah.
Tanvi?
Yes, Patricia, go ahead.
Yeah. See, we are a democracy. And in a democracy, we have such a thing as a civil society. If you ask me, there is a lot of trust deficit in politicians and in politics. And the Northeast has been known to have a vibrant civil society. Even today at 7 p.m., there are people in Mizoram across India, Mizos across India, who are having a sort of a discussion on peace building initiatives. I think there has to be a chance for such peace building initiatives between people of all these disputed territories. Because we cannot just leave everything to politics, nor can we leave everything to legal institutions. People have a role to play, and they should be allowed to play that role.
I agree totally, Patricia. Absolutely right.
I agree.
Also, I think Assam should stop this economic blockade. They did it once with Nagaland. They're doing it now with Mizoram. I don't think, because you're a bigger state, you should bully people that way.
But is there an economic blockade? Because the Assam seems to be denying it. Assam officials are saying, we are not doing anything. People are just too scared to go to the other side. Yeah, Bhaskar.
There is no economic blockage. There is no economic blockage, absolutely. And it is a wrong charge given by Madam Patricia Mukim. There is absolutely no, because there was a band in the Kachar district, in the Barak Valley, trucks were not moving. It is not economic blockage. From tomorrow, it will start moving. Simply that.
So
there is absolutely.
So the fact of the matter is that rail and road movement was impacted, but it was just, Dr. Roy, because of bunds and individual organizations who came to the street. Irrespective, people got affected.
Tanvi, I was in the border today till almost 1 o'clock in the afternoon, when the Assam Police ADGP was there, Mr. GP Singh, IPS officer. We had a categorical discussion with him and Mr. Shanwaz, who is the DIG of the CRPF site. I was there in that meeting. They took over the entire 306 National Highway. CRPF is now in possession of 306 National Highway, which is around, say, 170 kilometers from Silchar town to Aizawl. The border area is, say, from Silchar town to around, say, maybe 40-45 kilometers. I have traveled this 40-45 kilometers and come back. So I know what is the exact situation in the border. From the state government side of Assam, there is absolutely no border blockade. There is no economic blockade. We have left the manning of the entire National Highway 306 to the CRPF. If anyone wants to go, they can go and clearly see. We have told category, if anyone wishes to carry your food grains, your essential products, your petroleum and gases, everybody is free to do so. But the question is, there has been a sort of a tension which is there at civilian level at entire 164 kilometer border. Now the Mizoram government has to do some confidence building exercise. Why I say this? Because 14-15 months back, during April of 2020, when the entire country was tackling the first wave of corona, we all of a sudden see that a school building which was on the border of that area was blown out by Mizo miscreants. And we later went and saw these were detonated by certain substances which are generally not available with the civilians. Now, there is also another social aspect of it. In each and every Mizo family, we generally see that they are having guns and pistols and firearms with them. Now, whenever there is a civil disruption in the society, if they come out with their guns and this thing, which is not the norm otherwise in plains in the entire state of Assam or maybe in Barak Valley. So the people of the Barak Valley are sometimes, they get frightened because their normal life is not like having a gun in your normal activities. So that needs to be, countered. And there is a narrative which has been building, I am seeing in the national media, that Assam has organized a national economic blockade. I detest to that. I have personally seen to it, and I object to the word being used and all. And I think Assam government will do anything so that these 11 lakh people in Mizoram get their essential supplies.
Well, if it is of any help to you, I just want to point out we did not say that. And of course, since we don't have our own ways of verifying this claim, we've simply put out as how Mizoram seems to have claimed that, but Assam has constantly denied it. But let's come back to one larger point before I wrap this up, and Karma, to you this question. Isn't it odd, and I know you referred to this point in your opening remarks, but isn't it odd that now, 3 days after the violent clash, we still haven't heard from the top central leadership on what they intend to do next? I mean, it's fine for the top bureaucrats to talk to each other, but that's not going to help.
That's right. I mean, that is absolutely shocking. We've not heard from the central leadership. We've not heard from the Prime Minister. We've not heard from the Home Minister. We should have heard from them. Because this is not always we see policemen. We are not talking about civilians. We are not talking about tribes. We are talking about policemen of two states fire at each other and kill each other. This is unprecedented. This is like war. So we would have expected some kind of a statement coming in to calm things. That hasn't come, which is absolutely sad. And on both sides, as I said earlier, we've not seen a statesman rise out from both states. We needed that desperately. So in all of this right now, it's only led to tension. Is there an economic blockade? Assam side will say no. But there have been letters from the Mizoram side saying that there is a blockade. Now, it'll be good if there is no blockade, because it is not just benefiting the Mizo people because they need the essential. It is also benefiting the businessmen of Silchar. You ask them, because they also do business. They also send stuff from these cities in Assam. So economic blockade will hurt everybody. It's in nobody's interest. And further, it will further strain ties, and it will only create more distrust among people, which is definitely something that we do not want and should not be there.
I think, the one key aspect is that when there is distrust among people, then any kind of resolution becomes extremely difficult, and that's what the politicians first need to look at and begin to resolve. I'm going to thank all of you for joining me on this conversation. Thank you so much for being with me and giving us your insights as to what's really going on there. And for the state of Assam, I think it's the biggest challenge, because for them, the problem isn't just with one neighboring state. For them, the problem is with multiple neighboring states. In case you didn't know, many of these states were actually carved out of Assam, barring Tripura maybe, which is already there, in Manipur, everywhere else, which is why these border disputes continue. Now and then they flare up, either on this side, or on the Nagaland side, Meghalaya side, Arunachal side. They've gone to the Supreme Court. The central government in the past twice has set up commissions who have submitted their reports. But like it is in many other cases in our country for crucial issues, commission after commission submits reports and nothing really takes place. There was some amount of hope several years ago when this government came to power, because they made Northeast one of their key priorities, because they promised that they will bring about development, connectivity, interconnectivity, unity between the northeastern states. They made a Northeast Democratic Alliance, of which the current Chief Minister of Assam is a key leader. They have held rounds of conversations with all the state chief ministers, and yet these incidents continue. So somewhere that policy needs to be relooked, and it has to be the central government that steps in, takes charge, takes everybody on board and finds a resolution, or at least begins the process to resolve all these territorial disputes. Thank you for joining us.